Boss fires black waitress in front of everyone, regrets it seconds later. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the pristine white tablecloths as Maya Johnson adjusted her simple black uniform for the third time that morning. Her hands trembled slightly, not from nerves about the job, but from the weight of what she was really here to do. "You must be the new girl," came a sharp voice behind her. Maya turned to see a tall, impeccably dressed man with piercing blue eyes and a smile that never reached them. His name tag read Gavin Whitmore, General Manager, but everything about his posture screamed owner. "Yes, sir. Maya Johnson. I'm excited to." "Save it." Gavin cut her off, his eyes scanning her from head to toe with barely concealed disdain. "Le Marchand isn't your typical neighborhood diner. We serve clientele who expect perfection. Our waiting list is 6 months long, and our reputation took decades to build." Maya nodded respectfully, though her jaw tightened imperceptibly. "I understand, Mr. Whitmore. I won't let you down." Gavin's laugh was cold. "Let's hope corporate's latest diversity initiative doesn't backfire on us." Again. He walked away without another word, leaving Maya standing alone by the host station. "Don't take it personally," whispered a voice beside her. Maya turned to see a young Latina woman with kind eyes and flour-dusted hands. "I'm Layla, pastry chef. And you just met the king of this castle. Thanks for the warning," Maya replied, genuinely grateful for the friendly face. "Is he always so welcoming?" Layla glanced around nervously before leaning closer. "Gavin thinks he owns this place. Treats it like his personal kingdom, and the rest of us like peasants. Just keep your head down and do your job. That's the only way to survive here." As Layla hurried back to the kitchen, Maya absorbed the restaurant's atmosphere. Le Marchand was undeniably beautiful: marble floors, burgundy velvet banquettes, and original oil paintings that probably cost more than most people's cars. The lunch crowd was already filtering in: business executives in $1,000 suits, socialites dripping in diamonds, and leaders who seemed to own the world. "Johnson!" Gavin's voice boomed across the dining room. "Table 7 needs water. Try not to spill it on their Armani." Maya grabbed a crystal pitcher and approached the table where 2 women sat discussing their upcoming charity gala. As she poured their water, she caught fragments of their conversation about giving back to the community, while simultaneously complaining about their housekeeper asking for a raise. "Excuse me, miss," one of the women said without looking up. "This water has too much ice. Could you bring us some without any ice? And make sure the glasses are properly polished this time." The glasses were already spotless, but Maya simply smiled. "Of course, ma'am. Right away." As she returned to the service station, she noticed Jermaine, the dishwasher Layla had mentioned, a quiet black man in his 50s who moved with the efficiency of someone who'd been invisible for too long. Their eyes met briefly, and she saw a flicker of recognition there. Not of her face, but of shared experience. The afternoon flew by in a blur of orders, fake smiles, and Gavin's constant micromanaging. Maya watched everything: how he treated different staff members, which tables got his personal attention, and how he seemed to vanish during the busiest moments, only to reappear when things calmed down. "Maya, right?" A server named Brad approached her during a brief lull. His perfectly styled hair and expensive cologne suggested he wasn't hurting for money. "Word of advice: Gavin likes his girls compliant. Don't rock the boat if you want to keep this job." "Thanks for the tip," Maya replied carefully. "What happens to the ones who do rock the boat?" Brad's smile faltered. "Let's just say there's a reason the turnover rate for female staff is so high. Especially, well, you know." Maya knew exactly what he meant, but she pressed on. "Do you like working here? The tips are incredible, and the clientele opens doors. As long as you play the game, it's the best gig in the city." Brad glanced around nervously. "But if Gavin decides he doesn't like you, you're done. And he's very particular about fit." That evening, as Maya hung up her apron in the employee break room, she reflected on her first day. The restaurant was everything her Aunt Evelyn had suspected: a beautifully decorated kingdom ruled by a tyrant who saw staff as expendable props in his personal theater. Maya pulled out her phone and typed a quick message. Day 1 complete. Initial observations confirm your suspicions. We'll continue monitoring. The response came immediately. Be careful, sweetheart. Don't let anyone suspect who you really are. The truth will come out when the time is right. Maya smiled at her aunt's words. Evelyn DuVernay hadn't built a restaurant empire by being careless. She'd suspected Gavin of treating Le Marchand like his personal fiefdom for months, but she needed proof. Corporate complaints could be dismissed, but first-hand evidence from a trusted source. That would be impossible to ignore. As Maya walked to her car, she passed Gavin's BMW in the manager's parking spot. Through the window, she could see him on his phone, gesturing wildly. Even from a distance, his conversation looked heated. I don't care what corporate says, his voice carried across the parking lot. This is my restaurant, and I'll run it how I see fit. That new girl is just another quota hire anyway. Give her a few weeks, and she'll quit like all the others. Maya slipped into her modest Honda Civic and drove away, Gavin's words echoing in her mind. He had no idea that the quota hire he dismissed so easily was about to become his biggest nightmare. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new observations, and new evidence. But tonight, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Gavin Whitmore thought he was untouchable, insulated by his position and protected by the restaurant's prestige. He was about to learn just how wrong he could be. The game had begun, and Maya Johnson, niece of billionaire Evelyn DuVernay and the woman who would ultimately decide Gavin's fate, was just getting started. She had a job to do, a toxic culture to expose, and a kingdom to topple. One shift at a time. 3 weeks into her employment at Le Marchand, Maya had become invisible in the best possible way. Staff barely noticed her quiet presence as she moved between tables, but her eyes and ears caught everything. It was during the Tuesday lunch rush when she first witnessed Gavin's true nature. Hidden behind the wine storage room, Maya watched through a crack in the door as Gavin cornered Sarah, a young server who'd been struggling with the complex wine pairings. You embarrass me out there, Gavin hissed, his face inches from Sarah's. Mrs. Pemberton specifically asked for a Burgundy recommendation, and you suggested a Pinot Noir from Oregon? Do you have any idea how stupid that made me look? Sarah's hands shook as she clutched her order pad. I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore. I thought. You thought? Gavin's voice dripped with venom. That's your problem. I don't pay you to think. I pay you to smile, look pretty, and do exactly what I tell you. If you can't handle that, there are 50 girls waiting for your position. Maya watched Sarah's eyes fill with tears as she nodded frantically. The moment Gavin stormed away, Maya approached the devastated server. Are you okay? Maya asked gently. Sarah wiped her eyes quickly. I'm fine. Just learning the ropes. She looked around nervously. Please don't tell anyone you saw that. I need this job. That evening, Maya stayed late to help with inventory, a task that gave her access to the restaurant's financial records. What she discovered made her stomach turn. Gavin had been systematically skimming from the tip pool, redirecting portions of server gratuities into a separate account labeled management fees. But it wasn't just theft, it was strategic. Maya noticed that servers who complained about missing tips or questioned the pooling system were mysteriously scheduled for fewer shifts until they eventually quit. Working late again? Germain's voice startled her. The dishwasher stood in the doorway, his weathered hands still damp from the industrial sinks. Just catching up, Maya replied, quickly closing the ledger. Germain stepped closer, lowering his voice. You know, I've been watching you. 23 years I've worked in kitchens, and I can tell when someone's really seeing what goes on here. Maya felt her pulse quicken. Had she been too obvious? Last month, Germain continued, Gavin told the new host that having too many urban types on staff would make the clientele uncomfortable. Said it right in front of me, like I was part of the furniture. Did you report it? Germain's laugh was bitter. To who? Corporate? They love Gavin. This place makes them millions. As long as the money keeps flowing, they don't care how he treats the help. Over the following days, Maya documented everything. She recorded Gavin's late-night phone calls about maintaining standards and keeping the right image. She photographed the altar tip distribution sheets and memorized the names of servers who'd been driven out. But it was Layla who provided the most damning evidence. "He's done this before," Layla whispered during their break, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by exhaustion. "There was this server last year, Maria. Beautiful girl, spoke 3 languages, customers loved her. But she had the nerve to suggest that our dessert presentation could be more elegant. What happened to her? Gavin started scheduling her for the worst shifts, breakfast on weekdays when tips are terrible, closing on Sunday nights when we're finished. Then he began writing her up for tiny infractions. Uniform not pressed enough, arriving 2 minutes late, forgetting to smile at a table that was already finished eating." Layla's hands trembled as she continued. "The final straw was when she politely corrected a customer who was being inappropriate. Gavin fired her for attitude problems and not fitting the Le Marchand culture. Why didn't anyone speak up? Because we're all replaceable," Layla said quietly. "Gavin makes sure we know it. He has this system. He finds one thing you care about, one weakness, and he uses it against you. My daughter needs the health insurance from this job. Sarah's paying for her mother's cancer treatments. Brad owes money to people you don't cross." That weekend, Maya discovered Gavin's most insidious practice. She was organizing reservation books when she noticed a pattern in the seating charts. Tables in the main dining room, the most visible and prestigious spots, were consistently assigned to white servers, while minority staff members were relegated to the private dining rooms and bar area. "It's not coincidence," Brad confirmed when Maya casually brought it up. "Gavin has his front-of-house people and his behind-the-scenes people. Guess which category you and Jermaine fall into?" The breaking point came during a busy Friday evening. Maya watched Gavin intercept an envelope meant for Jermaine, a tip from a family whose anniversary dinner had been made special by the dishwasher's recommendation of their son's favorite dessert. "Management handles all gratuities," Gavin told the confused family, pocketing the cash meant for Jermaine. Later that night, Maya saw Jermaine eating a peanut butter sandwich in the break room while other staff members enjoyed leftover prime rib from the kitchen. "Couldn't afford lunch today," he explained simply when he noticed her watching. Maya's hands clenched into fists. The money Gavin had stolen could have bought Jermaine groceries for a week. That night, Maya's report to her aunt was longer than usual. She detailed every incident, every stolen dollar, every humiliation she'd witnessed. Gavin Whitmore had created a kingdom all right, one built on exploitation, discrimination, and fear. But kingdoms, Maya knew, were only as strong as their foundations. And Gavin's foundation was about to crumble. Her phone buzzed with Evelyn's response. "It's time for the final test. Tomorrow night, everything changes." Maya smiled grimly as she read the message. Gavin thought he was untouchable, protected by profits and prestige. He had no idea that his judge, jury, and executioner had been serving his tables for 3 weeks, documenting every sin. Tomorrow would bring justice. Tonight, Maya planned exactly how it would unfold. The next evening arrived with an electric tension that only Maya could feel. At 7:30 p.m., she received a text from an unknown number. "Table 12. 2 guests under the name Pemberton. This is it." Maya's heart raced as she smoothed her apron and checked her appearance one final time. Everything had led to this moment: weeks of documentation, careful observation, and building trust with the staff. Tonight, her Aunt Evelyn would test Gavin's character in the most public way possible. "Johnson!" Gavin's voice cut through the dining room chatter. "You've got VIPs at table 12. Don't mess this up." Maya approached the corner table, positioned perfectly to be seen by the entire main dining room. 2 elegantly dressed women sat reviewing the wine menu, one she'd never seen before, and another who looked oddly familiar despite the oversized sunglasses and styled hair that was different from the photos Maya had seen. "Good evening, ladies. Welcome to Le Marchand. I'm Maya, And I'll be taking care of you tonight." The woman Maya didn't recognize looked up with an expression of barely concealed disdain. Her accent was crisp, European, and dripping with entitlement. "Finally. Do you have any idea who I am?" "I'm sorry, ma'am, but—" "Ambassador Catherine von Habsburg," the woman announced loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Cultural attaché to the Swiss consulate. And this," she gestured to her companion, "is Miss Pemberton, one of your most valued patrons." Maya glanced at the other woman, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Even behind the designer sunglasses, there was something about her eyes that seemed familiar, warm despite the cold performance they were putting on. "Of course, Ambassador. We're honored to have you dining with us tonight. May I start you with some champagne while you review the menu?" The ambassador, if that's what she really was, snapped her fingers sharply. "Not just any champagne. We want your finest vintage. And bring it quickly. We have a cultural committee meeting at 9. Maya nodded professionally, but as she turned to leave, the ambassador's voice stopped her cold. "What's your name again, girl?" "Maya, ma'am." "Maya what? Don't you people have last names?" The dining room had grown quieter, other guests sensing the tension. Maya felt her jaw clench, but she maintained her composure. "Maya Johnson, ma'am." "Well, Maya Johnson, try to keep up tonight. We're not accustomed to substandard service." For the next hour, Maya endured a masterclass in humiliation disguised as high-end dining. The ambassador sent back the champagne twice, claiming it was too warm then too cold. She criticized Maya's posture, her pronunciation of French menu items, and made pointed comments about the help these days. "Smile more, Maya," the ambassador commanded as Maya served their appetizers. "In my country, service staff understand that hospitality requires genuine warmth, not this sullen attitude." Maya forced a smile, catching a glimpse of Gavin watching approvingly from across the room. He was practically glowing with satisfaction at how deferential she was being to his VIP guests. The breaking point came during the main course. As Maya set down the ambassador's Dover sole, the woman grabbed her wrist firmly. "You know, Maya, you remind me of a girl who used to work for my family back in Geneva. Lovely girl, very obedient. The key to success in service is knowing your place." Maya felt every eye in the restaurant on her. The ambassador's grip was firm, possessive, and completely inappropriate. For weeks, Maya had watched Gavin allow customers to treat staff poorly, had documented his own abusive behavior, had seen good people like Germaine degraded daily. This was her moment. Not just for the mission, but for everyone who'd been silenced in this place. Maya gently but firmly removed her wrist from the ambassador's grasp. Her voice remained calm and professional, but carried unmistakable steel. "Ambassador, I appreciate your feedback about service standards. However, I need to ask that you refrain from physical contact. It's both restaurant policy and my personal boundary." The ambassador's eyes widened in theatrical shock. "Excuse me? Did you just refuse a guest's gesture?" "I simply asked for appropriate professional boundaries to be respected, ma'am." The dining room had gone completely silent. Maya could see Gavin's face flushing red from across the room as he began marching toward their table. Other servers had stopped mid-service, and even the kitchen seemed to have gone quiet. "This is outrageous," the ambassador declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the restaurant. "I was simply being friendly, and this person has the audacity to lecture me about boundaries." Ms. Pemberton finally spoke, her voice carefully neutral. "Perhaps we should speak with management about this situation." Maya saw Gavin approaching like a storm cloud, his eyes blazing with fury. Every staff member in the restaurant was watching, waiting to see how their tyrant king would handle this public challenge to his authority. This was exactly what Evelyn had orchestrated, a test that would force Gavin to show his true nature in front of everyone. Maya had played her part perfectly, drawing the line exactly where any reasonable person should draw it. Now came the explosion that would destroy Gavin Whitmore forever. Maya straightened her shoulders and waited for the storm to hit. Gavin Whitmore descended on table 12 like a man possessed, his face crimson with rage and embarrassment. The entire dining room had fallen into an unnatural silence, the kind that happens when everyone knows they're about to witness something terrible. "Ambassador von Habsburg, Ms. Pemberton," Gavin practically groveled as he approached, his voice dripping with false charm. "I am so terribly sorry for this inexcusable disruption to your evening. Please, allow me to personally handle this situation." He turned to Maya, and the transformation was instant. The mask of professional courtesy vanished, replaced by pure venom. When he spoke, his voice carried across the restaurant like a whip crack. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Maya kept her voice steady and professional. "I was simply asking that appropriate boundaries." "Boundaries?" Gavin's laugh was harsh and bitter. "You think you have the right to set boundaries with our most distinguished guests? Do you have any idea who you just disrespected?" The ambassador leaned back in her chair, watching the scene unfold with apparent satisfaction. Other diners had stopped pretending to eat, their conversations forgotten as they witnessed the public execution of Le Marchand's newest server. "Mr. Whitmore," Maya began, "I understand the guest was upset, but restaurant policy clearly states—" "Don't you dare quote policy to me!" Gavin's voice rose another octave, causing several guests to visibly flinch. "I make the policies here. I decide what's appropriate. And what's appropriate is for you to show proper respect to guests who spend more on wine than you make in a month." Maya felt the weight of every eye in the restaurant on her. She could see Layla watching from the kitchen doorway, her face pale with worry. Germaine had stopped clearing tables and stood frozen by the service station. Even the busboys had stopped moving. "You don't belong here," Gavin continued, his voice growing louder and more vicious with each word. "You never belonged here. This is Le Marchand, not some neighborhood diner where your attitude might be tolerated. Our clientele expects a certain level of refinement. Something you clearly cannot provide." The racial undertones in his words were impossible to miss. Maya saw several guests shift uncomfortably in their seats, but none spoke up. The ambassador nodded approvingly, as if Gavin was finally handling things properly. "You embarrass me," Gavin snarled, stepping closer to Maya. "You embarrass this restaurant. You embarrass yourself. And worst of all, you disrespected a guest who could have us shut down with a single phone call." Maya remained perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her. She didn't argue, didn't plead, didn't give Gavin the satisfaction of seeing her break. Her silence only seemed to infuriate him more. "You don't talk back to customers here," he shouted, his voice echoing off the marble floors. "You smile, you say yes ma'am, and you do whatever they ask. That's your job. That's all your job." The ambassador spoke up then, her voice carrying clearly across the silent dining room. "Perhaps it would be best if this person were removed from service. I find her presence quite disturbing." Gavin's eyes lit up with vindictive pleasure. "You're absolutely right, Ambassador. This ends now." He turned to face Maya fully, his voice rising to ensure every person in the restaurant could hear his next words. "You don't belong here at all," he declared triumphantly. "You never did. This restaurant serves a discerning clientele who expect excellence, not excuses. They expect service from people who understand their place." He snapped his fingers sharply, the same dismissive gesture Maya had seen him use with Germaine countless times. "Security!" Two large men in black suits appeared from the host station, moving toward Maya with practiced efficiency. The restaurant patrons watched in fascination and horror as the drama unfolded. "You're fired," Gavin announced with savage satisfaction. "Effective immediately. Clear out your locker and get out of my restaurant. And don't expect a reference." Maya nodded once, her expression serene despite the chaos around her. She untied her apron slowly, methodically, as if she had all the time in the world. The dining room watched in complete silence as she folded it carefully. "Of course, Mr. Whitmore," she said quietly. "I understand completely." She walked to the bar where Layla stood with tears streaming down her face. Maya placed her folded apron on the polished wood surface, but as she did, something small fell from the pocket, a flash drive that clattered onto the bar top. Maya picked it up and slipped it back into her pants pocket, but not before several people, including Gavin, noticed the exchange. "Thank you for the opportunity," Maya said, her voice carrying across the silent restaurant. "It's been very educational." She walked toward the exit with her head high, passing tables full of guests who couldn't meet her eyes. As she reached the door, she turned back one final time. "Good evening, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your meal." The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving behind a dining room full of uncomfortable guests, and one very satisfied general manager. Gavin straightened his tie and turned back to the ambassador's table with a triumphant smile. "I do apologize for that unpleasant scene," he said smoothly. "Now, how can I make the rest of your evening perfect?" The ambassador removed her sunglasses slowly, and suddenly, everything changed. The woman Gavin had been desperately trying to impress looked nothing like the imperious ambassador who had tormented Maya moments before. Her face was serene, elegant, and absolutely terrifying in its calm authority. When she spoke, her voice had lost all trace of the European accent. "You just fired my niece." The words hit the dining room like a physical blow. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Even the soft jazz music seemed to fade into nothing. Gavin's triumphant smile froze on his face. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" The woman stood gracefully, her movements commanding attention from every corner of the restaurant. "My name is Evelyn DuVernay. I own 70% of this restaurant group. And you just publicly humiliated and fired the only honest employee I still trusted in this entire operation." The color drained from Gavin's face so quickly that several guests gasped audibly. His mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water, no sound emerging. "Ms. DuVernay," he finally stammered, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "I had no idea. I mean, she never said. I was just maintaining our standards." "Your standards?" Evelyn's laugh was soft but deadly. "Let me tell you about your standards, Mr. Whitmore." She reached into her purse and pulled out a tablet, her fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. "For the past 3 weeks, my niece has been documenting your management style. Would you like to see what she found?" The tablet screen came alive, and Gavin's own voice filled the restaurant through hidden speakers Maya had apparently placed throughout the establishment. "I don't care what corporate says. This is my restaurant, and I'll run it how I see fit. That new girl is just another quota hire anyway." Gavin's face went from white to green. Around the dining room, guests shifted uncomfortably as his recorded voice continued. "Having too many urban types on staff makes the clientele uncomfortable. We need to maintain the right image here." Jermaine, still standing by the service station, closed his eyes as his 23 years of invisible suffering was finally given voice. Layla sobbed openly now, her hand covering her mouth. But Evelyn wasn't finished. The screen switched to financial records, the same ones Maya had photographed during her late-night inventory sessions. "These are your tip distribution records," Evelyn announced, her voice carrying clearly to every table. "Notice the creative accounting? The management fees that somehow always equal exactly 20% of server gratuities." Gavin lurched forward desperately. "Ms. DuVernay, please let me explain." "Explain this." Evelyn cut him off, turning to face the dining room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for disrupting your evening, but I think you should know that your server tips have been systematically stolen by management for the past 18 months. The revelation hit the room like a bomb. Several guests immediately began reaching for their phones, while others started whispering urgently to their companions. Evelyn's companion, who had remained silent throughout the entire charade, finally spoke. "For the record, I'm Detective Patricia Wells with the Financial Crimes Unit. Everything you've just heard will be part of our official investigation." Gavin's legs gave out, and he collapsed into an empty chair. "This is all a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Maya never told me who she was." "Of course she didn't," Evelyn replied coolly. "That was the point. You see, I needed to know who you really were when you thought no one important was watching. And now I do. She walked closer to Gavin, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the silent restaurant. You created a kingdom built on fear, theft, and discrimination. You made good people like Jermaine invisible. You drove away talented women like Maria. You stole from hardworking servers to line your own pockets. The tablet screen switched again, showing security footage of Gavin pocketing the envelope meant for Jermaine just days earlier. But worst of all, Evelyn continued, you did it all while hiding behind the reputation my family spent decades building. You turned our restaurant into your personal playground and our staff into your victims. Gavin tried to stand, his voice breaking. Please, Ms. DuVernay. I have a family. I have a mortgage. This was all just business. Business? Evelyn's voice rose for the first time, carrying genuine anger. You call systematic theft and discrimination business? You call humiliating a young woman in front of a room full of people business? She gestured toward the kitchen, where the entire staff had gathered to watch the confrontation. Look at their faces, Gavin. Look at what your business has done to people who trusted you with their livelihoods. The dining room erupted in whispers as guests began to fully understand what they had witnessed. Several were already asking for their checks, clearly uncomfortable being part of the unfolding drama. Evelyn pulled out her phone and made a call. Security? Yes, it's time. Gavin Whitmore is to be escorted from the premises immediately. Corporate legal will handle the transition. As if summoned by magic, 3 men in dark suits appeared at the restaurant's entrance. Not the same security guards who had been prepared to escort Maya out, but corporate executives who moved with the quiet authority of people accustomed to cleaning up messes. Gavin looked around desperately, seeking some escape, some ally, some way to salvage his kingdom. But the empire he had built on fear and exploitation was crumbling around him. This isn't over, he whispered desperately. Evelyn smiled for the first time that evening. Oh, Mr. Whitmore. It hasn't even begun. 1 hour later, Le Marchand looked like a completely different restaurant. The last of the dinner guests had left, some in disgust, others promising to return once things were properly sorted out. Gavin Whitmore was gone, escorted out by corporate security while clutching a cardboard box containing his personal effects and a termination letter that would ensure he never worked in hospitality again. The staff had gathered in the main dining room, their faces a mixture of shock, relief, and cautious hope. Evelyn DuVernay stood before them, no longer disguised as a demanding customer but revealed as the woman who controlled their fate. I owe each of you an apology, Evelyn began, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to addressing boardrooms and shareholders. What happened here tonight, what has been happening for months, should never have occurred in any business that bears my family's name. Jermaine stepped forward hesitantly, his weathered hands clasped in front of him. Ms. DuVernay, ma'am, we never knew you were watching. That was intentional, Jermaine. And please call me Evelyn. I needed to see the truth, not a performance crafted for the owner's visit. She gestured toward the tablet still displaying financial records. What I found was systematic theft, discrimination, and abuse of power that makes me ashamed to be associated with this establishment. Layla wiped tears from her eyes. What happens to us now? Are we all going to be fired too? Evelyn's expression softened. Quite the opposite. Starting Monday morning, we begin rebuilding this restaurant the right way. Every penny stolen from your tips will be returned with interest. A full audit of all our properties begins immediately. And I'm implementing new management structures to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Brad, who had remained silent throughout the evening's drama, raised his hand tentatively. What about the other restaurants in the group? Are there more managers like Gavin? That's exactly what we're going to find out, Evelyn replied. Maya's investigation here was a pilot program. Based on what we discovered tonight, similar assessments will begin at all our properties within the week. As if summoned by her name, the restaurant's front door opened, and Maya Johnson walked back inside. Gone was the humble uniform and nervous demeanor. She wore a tailored business suit, and carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had just completed a successful mission. The staff erupted in spontaneous applause. Germain was the first to reach her, enveloping her in a bear hug that lifted her off her feet. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. 23 years I've been waiting for someone to see what was really happening here." Maya hugged him back, then addressed the gathered staff. "I want you all to know that this wasn't about catching Gavin. This was about protecting you. Every single one of you deserves to work in an environment free from harassment, theft, and discrimination." Evelyn moved to stand beside her niece. "Maya has accepted a new position as Director of Hospitality Integrity for our entire restaurant group. Her job will be to ensure that every employee, from dishwashers to general managers, is treated with respect and fairness." Sarah, the young server who had been reduced to tears by Gavin's abuse weeks earlier, stepped forward. "Does this mean we can actually speak up now? When something's wrong, I mean." "More than that," Maya replied. "It means you have a responsibility to speak up. I'm establishing anonymous reporting systems, regular staff surveys, and open-door policies that bypass local management entirely. No one should ever have to endure what you've all been through." The transformation in the room was palpable. Staff members who had spent months walking on eggshells were suddenly standing taller, speaking louder, asking questions they'd never dared voice before. Evelyn pulled out a prepared statement. "Tomorrow's staff meeting will cover the immediate changes, but here are the highlights. All tip distribution will be completely transparent and audited monthly. Scheduling will be merit-based, not based on favoritism or discrimination. A new general manager will be hired through a process that includes staff input. And every employee will receive sensitivity training, not because you need it, but because you deserve to work with people who have it." Maya walked to the bar where she had left her apron hours earlier. The flash drive was still there, containing weeks of evidence that had just toppled a tyrant. She picked it up and placed it in Evelyn's hands. "This belongs to you now," Maya said. "Along with everything we've learned about how to run a restaurant the right way." Through the large windows, they could see Gavin Whitmore standing on the sidewalk, staring back at the kingdom he had lost. His BMW was gone, repossessed by corporate security along with his company credit cards and access badges. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without the power he had wielded so cruelly. "What about him?" Layla asked, noticing their former tormentor through the glass. Evelyn didn't even glance toward the window. "Mr. Whitmore is facing criminal charges for embezzlement, a civil lawsuit for discrimination, and professional blacklisting that will follow him wherever he goes. He chose his path when he decided to build his kingdom on other people's suffering." Maya addressed the staff one final time. "Tomorrow we start over. Not just with new management, but with a new culture built on respect, fairness, and the recognition that every person who works here matters. Gavin Whitmore made you feel invisible. From now on, you'll never be ignored again." As the staff began to disperse, sharing hugs and making plans for the new beginning ahead, Maya and Evelyn stood together in the empty dining room. "Think he learned his lesson?" Maya asked, nodding toward the window where Gavin had finally walked away into the night. Evelyn smiled. "Some people never learn. But everyone else who witnessed tonight certainly did. And that's what matters." Le Marchand would reopen Monday morning as the same elegant restaurant it had always appeared to be. But underneath the marble floors and crystal chandeliers, everything had changed. The kingdom had fallen, and in its place rose something far better, a workplace where dignity was served alongside the finest cuisine, and respect was the most important item on the menu.